Hello and welcome to today's episode. I'm Wes, I'm one of the co-founders here at Demand Board. I'm with Anna, our head of paid media, and today we're going to be talking about getting more out of your paid media budget. So yeah, Anna, how do you get more out of your paid media budget?
Well, I think first things first is having like a really good level of dashboards or granular reporting on your current marketing efforts. So I think a lot of clients might look at top line level, for example, and say, okay, well, ROAS is X, so that's fine. I don't need to change anything. But having like a good view of like granular reporting for channel and campaign type within that channel is really important because they can see, okay, maybe this activity type's not doing so well. Let's kind of divert some investment and put that into paid social, for example.
Yeah, that makes sense. A lot of people seem to have their budgets quite siloed. It's very common for brands to come to us and say, we've got this much money for paid social, this much money for paid search. So I think overall it's a lot better generally if you have like a dynamic budget, like a total budget, but it's sort of going towards your overall effort and you can move it dynamically throughout the month into the area that's doing the best.
Yeah, definitely. And like just kind of having a cross-channel budget, as you say, and reviewing that in line with cross-channel reporting so you can kind of see where best to move it. I think another interesting tactic some clients take would maybe siloing that budget by different kind of phases of the marketing funnel. So, you know, obviously awareness is going to have a different KPI than conversion tactics. So maybe you want a separate awareness pot for paid social, kind of going for landing page views, visits to site, for example, and then you can kind of be a bit more cross-channel in terms of your search and social mix when it comes to conversion. So you can kind of move money around based on where you get the best return on investment. So once you've kind of got all the reporting in place, I think another really important point is just having a robust testing framework. So kind of working on what you have at the moment and just making sure that you can kind of do tests to tweak and get efficiencies on your current activity, which you can then use to like reinvest in terms of opportunities to scale. So quite a common test that we recommend or kind of see a lot of clients getting some good savings from would be on brand campaigns. So a lot of the time they might have like target impression share on their campaigns, which just means they have like max impressions, but they'll obviously paying a lot more for that as well. So we usually recommend like either like an eCPC bid strategy or a TROAS bid strategy. So that way they can kind of make savings on their CPCs and not necessarily sacrifice on their impression share or conversion. So it's just like win-win, and then they can kind of reinvest that money elsewhere, essentially. Speaking of tests as well, I think another interesting point is a lot of clients will have quite a limited budget for marketing. So they might not necessarily want to test that much. They might be a bit averse to testing in new campaign types, for example. So we would kind of recommend getting them to kind of silo a separate testing budget where they've got kind of agreed KPIs, measures of success, and it just means that they're actually giving like this new activity type a bit more of a chance to learn and actually get solid data behind it by giving it like a considerable amount of investment rather than maybe only giving it like a couple £100 one month to the next. You're not really going to get learnings and you're not necessarily going to be able to scale that activity. So that works really well as well. And then I think another thing that clients should do is just making sure that their creative is like fresh, you know, they're kind of moving with the new season, with the new sale, making sure that's kind of aligned across all channels as well, just so that, again, they're kind of able to get creative learnings and kind of share those across channels, again, make savings and then reinvest that into future activity.
That makes complete sense. And making sure the creative is fresh is so important, especially on social where, you know, once you pass sort of frequency of free, the sort of performance drops off considerably. So yeah, great points. So what common issues do you see inside accounts that result in waste of spend when you're doing audits at the moment?
Yeah, so I think one of the major things that we see is over-segmentation. So whether that's across paid search or paid social, I think, you know, consolidation is key moving forward in paid media. So just making sure you're consolidating your campaigns to get more data through them, to get more learnings and allow kind of whatever bid strategies that you're running on them actually get the best out of performance. So another interesting point is, for example, on the paid search side, obviously a lot of clients are moving towards broad match, which is really good, but we find that they're kind of applying that to like the old structures that they've had in place. So there's a lot of like overlapping across campaigns. And I think going back to what I said about reporting, just making sure that you've got, you know, exactly which campaigns are driving what performance just helps so much in terms of better optimization, essentially. So yeah, just making sure, you know, you're not overlapping keyword themes. You can kind of use negative keywords to kind of cut out a lot of irrelevant traffic as well. But Just kind of getting the structure right is really important. I think also there's a case to be said about the data that you're feeding into your bid strategies. So in a lot of cases, our clients kind of bid towards orders and revenue, but a more sophisticated strategy could be feeding like profit data into the bidding algorithms, for example, so that, you know, we can actually bid to profit and actually increase the profitability overall for the business.
That makes sense. I know when we did it with Cheeky Wipes, it worked really well. I think one of the biggest challenges we're faced with clients is the fact that people don't necessarily actually buy the product they clicked on. So in Google Ads, you know, you might see one product doing quite well, but then when you look at analytics and see what they actually purchased, it's quite often a different product. So obviously when we're trying to segment it by margin, it looks like you're doing something quite clever in Google Ads, but because people are not buying the same thing, you sort of get that the problem where it doesn't quite line up. So by bringing in profit metrics, getting individual margin data on the products, and then being able to feed that back has been, I think, pretty revolutionary for the account. I can't remember exactly what the stats were. I think it was about 58% reduction in cost for the same level of profitability. So yeah, being able to really focus your efforts has been a big success.
I think a lot of clients kind of aim to be able to kind of bid to higher profit, but then a lot of them actually struggle with it. So that's a really good example, actually. I think another kind of on the other side of things in terms of what you feed the algorithms in terms of bidding is just for maybe smaller accounts, for example. Sometimes they're not getting enough conversions to necessarily be on a target CPA or a target ROAS strategy. So in those cases, they might be on like max clicks or max conversions, which isn't necessarily the best bid strategy for them to be on because they end up just wasting spend, especially if they've got things like broad match in place, for example. So something we've kind of done and we suggest people to do to kind of hack that is maybe adding micro conversions, for example. So on e-com, that would be like add to carts, so that you're like recording more conversions for the bid strategy to learn off. Or on the lead gen side, maybe just taking the conversion to like one step further up the funnel. So for example, if you were kind of bidding to like opportunity, maybe bid to SQL or MQL instead, because you'll get more data through that way, which again, you can kind of better feed the algorithms to find similar customers.
That makes sense. Where do you think at the moment the biggest opportunity is for brands if they want to scale spend efficiently, you know, like a really effective spend?
Yeah, so I think in terms of search, just making sure you're kind of utilizing the full Google stack. So whether you might just be on search for now, but maybe just expanding out into PMax, because more and more competitors are on PMax now, so it just kind of makes sense to be there too. And even kind of going into demand gen if your kind of budgets allow. And again, of course, like if you're on Google, you know, testing on Bing as well. I know Bing is a little bit lower volume, but it can actually have better conversion rates and like cheaper CPCs than Google, so always worth testing. And on the social side of things, I think obviously a lot of clients and people are kind of very well versed in Meta now, and kind of getting a lot out of that, but kind of looking to expand out onto TikTok, for example. It's kind of like a growing platform. Kind of more older users are using it now than, you know, back in the day when it was just like the younger users. And it provides like a much cheaper opportunity for like CPM, for example. And it's kind of, it's really strong on like influencer content, for example, which I know does really well, especially now.
That makes sense. I know in terms of influencer content, it's not only big on, I guess, on TikTok as well. I mean, we ran a campaign for a company called Live Now. So Live Now are a streaming platform, effectively selling tickets to live events that popped up in COVID. So you can stream them instead of obviously going to them in person back when you couldn't go outside. And we ran 2 different campaigns. So first one we ran was from will.i.am's page. So it was an event for the Black Eyed Peas. You could watch it in front of the pyramids and stream that live. And basically will.i.am ran an advert, sort of direct-to-phone type video to his audience, and we promoted it to his audience. And then we ran a second ad, which was from the Live Now page. Again, it was the same video from will.i.am explaining the promotion. You can go and see them in front of the pyramids. And the difference in CPA was massive. When we were able to target his audience with his creative from his profile, CPA was almost a third of what it was when we did it from the brand page. So I think there's a big opportunity there for brands to, as part of their influencer deals, making sure they've got rights to use the content in their own paid media activity, but also, if possible, being able to target the influencer's audience from the influencer's page. That's the optimal setup. Obviously, some sort of balance between, I guess, cost and opportunity size. I appreciate working with influencers isn't always a cheap business. So yeah, when you can get the opportunity to do that, and sort of cost price makes sense for the creative and the opportunity, then yeah, certainly an avenue worth trying to pursue.
I think as well, just on audiences, that's another opportunity that people can just maybe look into broadening their audiences across social, for example. If, you know, their current audience is doing quite well, maybe there's scope to broaden that. Again, on like lookalike audiences as well, maybe there's scope to broaden those based on what they're already running. So there's a few opportunities there too.
Wonderful stuff. No, thank you very much. I really appreciate
Thanks.
it.